So this is my app for 3ds that simulates cellular automata with genetic or generational rule sets. I just wanted to show my professor at MSU Denver for my independent study for cellular automata what my application looks like and how it operates. And this is basically streaming from the 3ds directly to my laptop using NTR Viewer. So I'm actually pressing buttons on the 3ds and using the touchscreen on the 3ds. If you're not familiar with the 3ds, I want to show you that this is the top screen and this is the bottom screen. The bottom screen is a touch screen, so you can actually touch things that you see on the bottom screen. My app takes touch on the bottom screen and takes it as input for toggling alive and dead cells in the cellular automata. Down here, the generation 12 and 24, that's the genetic rule set. I just pressed Y, which shows the rule set for alive and dead cells on red. The other one on the right, 24 generations, is blue. They both are dead right now, so they don't do anything. If I wanted to do the classic game of life, I would first press down on the D-pad until I see 2. For 2 generations, that means that there's only 2 states that the cell can be in, alive or dead. And then for the rules, I need to have, when there's 2 or 3 alive cells, I stay alive because it's not overcrowding or undercrowding, so I'm happy I stay alive. And if there's exactly 3 and I'm dead, I become alive. I just press those with the touchscreen. So now, when I press B, I exit out. When I press R, it randomizes the screen and starts playing. This is what happens with the classic Conway's Game of Life rule set. As you can see, there are gliders, there's lots of patterns. There's a glider right here, and it died. You can also pause with A, and you can resume with A. If I pause, and even if I don't pause, I can toggle alive and dead cells. As you can see, I just drew some stuff, I think, right around here. And then I can see what happens. I can also hit left or right to change up here. I didn't actually clear out the buffer for the console when I change the number, so when the generations go up, it keeps the 1 there. Kind of annoying, but it's actually in color 2, which is blue. So now if I write down there, it will make blue. Right now, though, the rule set is a little different. If I press Y, I can see the transformation rule set. And right now, it's biased towards red. If there's any red at all, it becomes red. So even though I make blue, blue just dies out. There's no rules for blue, as you can see. They're dead no matter what. But there's 24 generations for blue. That means that it starts alive at 24, and as it goes down, when it would usually die in a classic rule set for cellular automata, 2D cellular automata, instead it just ages and goes down to 23, then 22, and so on. You can see that by the shade of blue or red. It gets darker as it gets older. When it's old, when it's aging, it contributes to staying alive rules, but does not contribute to birthing rules. Whereas if it's at the maximum state, or it was just born in that case, it's considered when it decides whether or not to birth a cell, to make a dead cell alive again. So that's the rule set, and when it becomes dead completely, it goes away, and it's suddenly dead, and doesn't contribute to any of the birthing or staying alive rules. But it does get counted when it should become alive or not, and it counts as a dead one. So that's the basics of the genetic or generational rule sets. A lot of that stuff I had to tweak because the explanations online were not very descriptive, like what happens, like how the dying or aging cells contribute to birthing or staying alive. They don't really go into that, but from the behavior and other videos I've seen online, this seems to be the way that generational rule sets are supposed to behave. So what I thought would be interesting is if I made a transformation rule set, although it didn't turn out to be that interesting, because I think that it's just too, it's much more complicated, I think, to make interesting interactions between two different colors. I think I would need to have a different algorithm for deciding whether or not something becomes alive or dead. I think that if I had more time to work on this program, I would have implemented something like a von Neumann distance of 2. But when calculating whether or not it should transform, I was also thinking maybe using an algorithm that I make up myself, where it figures out how big a object is, and an object would be how many living or aging cells are connected of one color, and it would determine that size in comparison to the other color to decide whether or not it should be engulfed or transformed or not. But it would be very intensive on the CPU. Right now it's not really limiting itself to frames per second at all. It just runs as fast as it possibly can. But because it does the rules on every cell, every frame, it never really slows down. The frame rate you see drop is because of the Wi-Fi signal, and the hack that I'm using to stream my gameplay from the 3DS to the laptop is not perfect. It runs with the maximum frames per second it can all the time on the 3DS. It never slows down, but as you can see on this stream, it is hiccuping sometimes. It does that with all games, not just mine, when you try and stream the gameplay this way over Wi-Fi. But other than that, what I wanted to show you is the interaction between different rule sets with a standard, when they don't engulf each other, and they just stay as they are. So I will we'll make them both common in Game of Life. We'll randomize it. Oh, right. The blue has 2 generations. For it to be stable in Game of Life, let's try again. Alright. As you can see, it's anybody's game. They don't really engulf each other. They just kind of keep to themselves. Nothing that interesting going on. Of course, when red or blue dies, the other color can take its place, but they don't really fight each other or consume each other. However, if I increase the bias to red, then red will suddenly start consuming blue and will actually take over its spots. What's kind of annoying, or, well, I guess you could say it's interesting, is because these rule sets are the same, and I made it so transformation is 2 times the speed of light in Cellular Automata, which means that the transformation actually happens twice as fast as movement, or birthing, or death happens. It can quickly take over and just resume living as it was, more or less, when it takes over another color. But that's because they have their same moveset. If I change this to be like the fader moveset, which is one of my favorites, its generation has to go up to at least 20 or so. And we'll make it so that it's biased towards, we'll make it actually even. Blue is now very voracious and will fill the entire screen pretty quickly. If I can get it to... No, I don't seem to be able to get them to grow. Oh, right. Wrong spot. There we go. Alright, now we'll get some spot for it to grow. The faders kind of branch out in a fractal-like pattern, and they fill the entire screen when they are given enough space. This one's limited by its movement, so That's why that's happening. But if we get free reign, it quickly fills the screen and kind of makes it hard for red to even move. So that's the fader rule set. And if we make it so that it's biased towards red again, and we kill off red, it quickly consumes the screen. I just reset it so it gives a randomized screen of blue. But now I can toggle live and dead for red. And the rule set right now for red is it always dies. But because transformation happens at the speed of light, or twice the speed of light, I can actually wipe out most of blue pretty easily just from a chain reaction. So, kind of fun. I thought this was kind of rather fun. I think that I showed you this in one of the meetings we had. But I wanted to show you some other rule sets that I thought were kind of interesting too. For one thing, the fader is interesting in that, as you can see right up here, the generation was at 23. I'm going to lower it to 2. And you can see that it just becomes kind of erratic behavior, like static, that fills the screen. Aside from its growth, it doesn't really have much structure or patterns in it. But as we increase the generations to 3, it starts to have more shape or fluidity. And then at 4, you can start to see structures. What I found interesting is that a lot of what Wolfram wrote about in his book was about seemingly chaotic behavior for very simple rules. A lot of those behaviors were with just classic 2 states, alive or dead, or black and white. When you give it generations or shades and let it stay alive for a while, it creates very interesting patterns. The more you go up in generations, you can start to see more beautiful patterns from seemingly chaotic behavior, which I thought was really interesting. The next thing I want to show you is just the fact that there's a lot of interesting rule sets. One of them that I like is the Star Wars rule set. So we have to lower the thing to about 4. And this is the Star Wars rule set. They call it, the creator calls it that because of all of the spaceships or gliders it creates. But it also has a lot of stable structures that just kind of stick around for a while. And they also make ships that kind of move around. This universe wraps around the top to the bottom and left to right screens to make it seem like an infinite universe, but really it's not. This is one of my other favorite rules. Another favorite rule set that I found on the website was, one second while I look it up, 012468. So let me do this. 3, 6, and 18. Alright, so this is the ebb and flow 2. It has a possibility of making, this is the rule set, it has a possibility of making gliders, and that's because of the 2 birthing rule. The 2 birthing rule really makes a lot of gliders sometimes because, I think it's just because having two next to each other birthing a new cell can start a chain reaction pretty easily. This one looks like a brain or a heart ebbing and flowing. It's voracious and it's very stable. So with the transformation rules, this one actually quickly overcomes, but only slowly, overcomes the entire screen, which I thought was kind of interesting. I can show you that, I guess. So we'll do faders for red, 23 or 24 or so, and then I'll pause it and make a spot for reds to grow. Oh, I forgot the transformation is biased towards red, so we'll make it biased slightly towards blue. As you can see, the blue in the corner here is not going away very easily, and it's slowly overcoming the red if it gets a chance. So it's starting to spread. Kind of interesting. My CPU and my 3DS and the Wi-Fi can't really handle it. As you can see, the Wi-Fi is slowing down. On the 3DS, this is running very smoothly, but the stream is not handling it very well. But as you can see, blue is quickly taking over the entire screen and just killing off all of the red. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, fun app, fun to play with. But as they said, it's like a 0-player game. This rule set for me, make red go away. This rule set for blue, if we lower the generations, it just becomes utter chaos. It doesn't grow as fast as faders, but it seems like utter chaos. Especially at 2, you can't even tell what's going on. But as you increase, I think around 10, it starts to take a more structured pattern. So I'm increasing it to about 20 now. But if we get up to 30 or 32, let's wipe the screen really quick. So, letting them all die out. We'll put it back. So the what was 0, 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. And 3, 6. And actually, it's only supposed to be 18. And pause it, and I'll draw something. So that's interesting. When I researched Cellular Automata to find out what it's used for in the real world, I came across a bunch of things that talked more about that it's used for, like image processing, like blur effects, stuff like that. And I can see why, because if we do like a fader up here, and let me pause it. Oops, maybe just I had to touch it a few times to get it to do what I wanted, but like the fader rule set, the blue is overcoming the red, and we can make the blue more like a fill, I suppose. So it's kind of like filling the red right now, because it's just always dying, but it doesn't affect. So it's like a fill. What else could I say? What else could I show? Let me see. So if there's 2 alive, you stay alive. We could say is like if there's any alive at all, we stay alive. But if there's and then we could like make the change the rules. We could say if there's blue at all, we become blue, and I'm going to create a fill effect. So that's kind of interesting. Actually, we'll just make it so that it's always alive. So let me erase this, randomize it, so they're always alive if there's alive at all, they're always alive, which would be kind of like a fill. And we'll take over this. So it converted the aging cells into aging blue, and aging doesn't stay alive if there's other things around it. It continues to age, so it only converted everything that was actively alive at the moment that it transformed into a solid blue. The rest just died out. But yeah, I was playing with this about a couple weeks ago when I wasn't so busy. I was able to work on this project more. Came across a lot of interesting things you can do with this app. But yeah, that's just the basics. That's like what it can do. And yeah, have a good day.